So here, we have to break this story down again, right? So I just want to start out. So Aaron Mate, who works with the Gray Zone, he's been and this show have been the preeminent places to be debunking the Syrian pro-war narrative that Assad used gas attacks on his own people, and so we should bomb them and overthrow their government. So that's the same thing we did to Iraq, same thing we did to Libya. So we're trying to stop it in Syria, but the Young Turks are for it. Right. And so they keep saying that Aaron is working for Assad and he's an Assadist and he gets paid by the Russians. That's what well, here, I'll show you what they said.
And I don't know what to say.
They said Aaron Mate yelled at me. And so
Aaron Mate lied. Aaron Mate. everyone cares what Aaron Mate has to say, right?
Okay.
The guy who denies that Syrian children were killed with chemical attacks. Yeah.
And
fuck
gets
Aaron
paid by
Mate.
the...
Yeah, fuck you.
Anyway,
let's move on.
Russians.
Let's end the freaking pod. I can't.
Okay, see, that's what happens.
I can't stand that guy, and I can't stand the very intentional disinformation they put out there in regard to disgusting dictators around the world. The very people they...
She won't ever say what the disinformation is, ever. She'll never say what it is.
Nobody does.
But she just keeps fighting straw men. Here we go.
Seem to be working for, to be quite honest with you. Let's move on.
All right, we're done.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
But if Aaron Mate feels really warm in his Russian blanket, he's like, oh, but the Russian government favors me. He should be super proud of that. Way to go, Aaron. You did it. Okay.
Yeah.
And
fuck Aaron Mate. Yeah, fuck you. Anyway, let's move on. Let's end the freaking pod.
So there's few things as disgusting as that, right? That's just, they've gotten so used to McCarthy smearing people who they don't like. They did it to Julian Assange. They said he was working for someone else. And so here, even Roger Waters from Pink Floyd got involved. You want to hear what he had to say?
Yeah, of course, sure.
Oh,
yeah.
Fucking stupid prick. All you have to do is a little bit of research to understand that all the research that has gone into the OPCW debacle and the huge story that lies behind that has been completely ignored by the mainstream media because it's inconvenient. When you look at it compared with the measured arguments of Aaron Mate, who's a fine young journalist, and Joe, whatever his name is, the first president of the OPCW who started...
Oh, Bustani. Jose Bustani, I believe?
Exactly, Bustani, exactly. Well, he turned up on the same day that Aaron Mate did, all right, to give evidence to a hearing of the Security Council into the whole story of Duma and the fact-finding mission and the falsification of the evidence by the OPCW and blah, blah. And it's there for anybody to read, chapter and verse. And it's since been attacked by people like that and others. And I've heard bad things about them for a long time. But they purport to be thinking young people who have an alternative. They're not. They are the status quo bolstering what the great American empire believes.
And so that's Roger Waters from Pink Floyd telling you that the Young Turks are repeating State Department pro-war propaganda. They are the status quo. They are not thinking people, and they don't care, and they're not journalists, that's for sure. And so Anna Kasparian then tweeted out a link to a clipped video that was deceptively edited by a guy that's what he does. He deceptively edits videos and tries to get traction on them. He does it to me. He does it to Glenn Greenwald. He does it to, now he's doing it to Aaron Mate.
He doesn't like facts.
He did it to you too, Max?
Well, of course. It's an operation. So if you're an anti-imperialist and you're on the left or you're disrupting the official narrative about, these very sensitive issues of war and peace, this guy's going to come for you the same way Philip Cross will vandalize your Wikipedia page. So it's an operation.
So she pretends, she tweets out a doctored video, a deceptively edited video, and she says, does calling Assad a hero qualify as being an Assadist? So here's the video. She's claiming that Aaron Mate called Assad a hero. Here's the video, the deceptively edited video first.
Assad is understandably a hero because he's the face of the government that liberated those towns.
Right.
And people can't process that thought because Westerners have been so bombarded with propaganda aimed at demonizing Assad. This is always the case. Again, even though we've lived through the Iraq War, we lived through Libya, this happens. It's the same playbook every single time. In the name of human rights.
So that's the deceptively. They said it starts off with him saying,
Assad is understandably a hero because he's the face of the government that liberated those towns.
So here's the full quote. Ready? Here we go.
I mean, you yourself said that it was creepy. There are a lot of Assad photos. There's nothing that I don't think newsworthy about that, though. And I'm not.
Look, there were a lot of Assad.
Yeah.
But again, you know what? I don't want to actually disparage it because, again, to people who've just lived through a war where the alternative is living under Saudi armed fanatics.
Yeah.
Assad is understandably a hero because he's the face of the government that liberated those towns.
So, as Katie Helper pointed out, here's the video which Matthew Dimitri edited very deceptively. As you will see, Aaron says two people who just lived through a civil war where the alternative is living under Saudi armed fanatics. Assad is understandably a hero. Of course, Dimitri cuts out the beginning, and Anna Kasparian tweeted it out. And then she says the unedited video changes. So people were like, she says the unedited video changes nothing. And you know that. What? It'd be nice if you maybe address the second tweet in my thread where he literally minimizes Assad's brutality. What's your excuse for that one? Go. So Katie comes back and says, please stop projecting. I'm going to sleep. But if you haven't understood the difference between calling someone a hero and explaining why people see someone as a hero, I'm happy to explain it to you. Literally, all you had to do is admit you posted a dishonestly edited clip. You could have said it was an honest mistake. You undermine whatever argument you make because you're clearly not in good faith. And then she tweets out, this is embarrassing. Yeah, for you. For you. Genuine question. Has Kasparian ever done a segment on the genocidal U.S. sanctions on Syria? No. They've never covered the OPCW whistleblowers either. Just like MSNBC. They're not going to cover it. Aaron Mate will cover it, and he'll probably win another award for it. Of course not. In Anna Kasparian's defense, she might not even be aware of them. So he's responding to this. Has she ever done a segment on the genocidal U.S. sanctions in Syria? And Aaron says, of course not. In her defense, she might not even be aware of them. So it gets even worse, Max, before I bring you in. Anna Kasparian is now retweeting Bellingcat. So this is that anti-interventionist peace group that gave awards to people who were covering Syria correctly. And she's trying to say it's pro-Assad. We're pro-Assad, which is like saying people who were debunking the WMD's lie about Iraq were pro-Saddam Hussein. That's what Anna Kasparian's saying. That's what Bellingcat is. Now, Bellingcat, as we've shown you on this show many times, takes money directly from the U.S. government and NATO to tell lies about places like Syria, Libya, and anybody like Max Blumenthal or Aaron Mate or me. If we're doing good work debunking the pro-war narrative, they're going to smear you because they're being paid to do propaganda. And they admit it. They admit that they get paid by the government, the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy. They admit it. They can't hide that. But nobody knows what that is, and so does. And obviously, Anna Kasparian has no idea. But there she is retweeting these garbage propagandists that we're here to out. We've been outing them on the regular, and she's retweeting them. So she then says he was invited to Syria by the Syrian Solidarity Movement. Take a look at who serves on their committee. He thinks I don't look into these things. It's incredible. It's just amazing. It's amazing. First, I wasn't in Syria on behalf of a pro-Assad group. I was in Syria on my own behalf doing journalism, a concept you can't grasp. She says, this is all you do all day long, Aaron. You're a small man who goes around attacking excellent journalists with bad faith smears. The projection is incredible. Yes, the projection is incredible. Incredible. Aaron says, let's recap. You attacked me on your show with a lie-filled McCarthyite rant, then, rather than retract, doubled down with more lies on Twitter. Now you have the gall to claim that it's really me who's engaged in bad faith smears. The projection is incredible indeed. And I like what Chase says. He says TYT should get an IMAX screen for all that projection. So this is the kind of things that they will stoop to try to smear somebody. They'll first McCarthy smear them, say they're working for Assad instead of debunking a pro-war narrative, say that they're being paid directly by the Russians. I mean, is there anything scummier they could do than that? I mean, the next thing she's going to do is accuse Aaron of sexually harassing her. Because that's what she's going to try to do to me now. Because this is bothering them so much.
She kind of did.
Oh, she did. What did she say?
She accused him of harassing her. She accused him of harassment. So, I mean, you're halfway there.
Well, she's doing it to me because this is really driving her crazy. That we're pointing out that they are doing repeating State Department talking points. They've always been pro-war. They were pro the Libyan war. They were pro-bombing Syria in 2014, 17. Cenk said Trump didn't bomb Syria enough. So he's all for bombing brown people over at the Young Turks. They're all for it. They always are. And if you debunk a pro-war narrative, they will smear you like they did. And now they're so desperate. She's saying that he had harassed her. Well, watch this. She did this to me. She said a DM to me last night. The last DM she sent me was April 14th, 2016. Watching you guys kick ass right now. That was her last DM to me. But here's how she's trying to threaten me. And I'll tell you why this is a big mistake on her part. She says, I'm sure you remember when you constantly made inappropriate comments about how sexy you found me at work and even felt the need to ask me where I shop for my jeans so you can buy a pair for your wife so she dresses better.
Thank you.
That was followed by an apology card you wrote me for the degrading harassment. I've been holding back, letting you run your mouth nonstop as if you're some sort of warrior for what's good in the world. That's going to change. So now she's, instead of saying I'm paid by the Russians or saying I'm working for Assad, she's now going to try to pretend I sexually harassed her when I was at the Young Turks. So I remember I did ask her about, I want to buy a pair of jeans like that for my wife. Apparently that's offensive to her. I don't know if you ever watched the Young Turks, but all they talk about in the second hour when I used to be there was the most outrageous sex stories in the world. So, and you know, I mean, I don't want to have to tell you that Cenk literally sat next to Anna and said if he was in government, he would make it legal for people to have sex with animals. He literally said that. I'm not making that up. That people tweeted that video out. So they've said that they wanted to be Howard Stern. Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian, they wanted to do the Howard Stern show, and they did for years. So now she has to make it up because we're coming at her on her journalism. So we're calling out her journalism and her McCarthyite smears, and this is how she responds. And I'll tell you this story. The story about that was followed by an apology card you wrote me for degrading harassment. Anna Kasparian used to dress when I worked there unbelievably inappropriately for a newsroom. She looked like she was going to a rave. The skirt, one time she came into the newsroom with a skirt so short. It wasn't a pencil skirt. It was like a fluffy one too, but so short that she bent over in front of me and I literally saw her ass and her thong. She's wearing a thong. I literally saw it. Everybody saw it. And I go, hey, Anna, nice news skirt. And everybody laughed. Like they laughed louder than I thought they would. And so it humiliated her. She got humiliated in the middle of the newsroom, and I did it, and I felt bad. At that time, we were friendly, and I was just busting her balls, right, for dressing like that in a newsroom. You're going to bend over and show me your ass? I think that's a little, I'm not offended, but I think that's a little risque. Imagine if I did that, if I walked around showing my ass to everybody. So when I did that, so she got really mad. She got humiliated. Her face turned red. She tried to insult me back, and it just fell flat. And she looked, bad. And I felt bad for her. I didn't want to make her feel that, but I just wanted to make a little joke. And all I said was, "Hey, Anna, nice news skirt," and everybody in the newsroom, because everybody saw how inappropriate she used to dress. And everybody saw it. And so that's why it got such a huge laugh, and she was so humiliated. So I felt bad for her. So the next day I wrote her a card saying, "Hey, I'm sorry. I won't do that again. That was inappropriate. You don't have to worry about that happening again. I won't comment on your clothes anymore." I should have said, no matter how fucking ridiculous.
You mean you'll stop commenting on her thong? On
her thong that I could see. This is how low they're stooping now, Max, is she's gonna try and gin up some kind of bullshit like this, some kind of hashtag Me Too against me. And what she doesn't realize is that she's revealing that the reason why she's coming forward with some kind of accusation isn't because it bothered her and it was true and that she was traumatized, and that she's trying to get back at me because I'm telling the world about their poor journalism. So she's literally, I'm going to fucking hashtag Me Too you because of what you're saying about my journalism. That's not how it's supposed to work. That's not supposed to be a retaliation for someone critiquing your work. I'm going to hashtag Me Too you for fucking, that's not how it's supposed to work. So you kind of screwed the pooch there. But good luck. Good luck. I'm sure you'll get some shit libs to retweet it for you. But it will have, I don't have a manager, and I don't have a human resource department. So let's bring in Max. Now, Max, where would you like to take the conversation?
Yeah, this isn't really where I thought the conversation was going to go. I don't have the same history with these people. So I have no problem with Anna Kasparian's style of dress.
Let's talk to
we don't have a dress code at the Gray Zone. People can show up however they want. I do have a problem with this campaign of McCarthyite lies. And honestly, I'm even hesitant to get in the gutter with these people. I mean, looking at her tweets today, and they also, they're directed at me, and everyone's a Russian agent.
Everybody's a Russian.
It really is like a trashy suburbanite version of the Steele dossier. It's like, just so gutter level and so base level. And what basically happened here is so juvenile. Basically, she and Cenk got caught trashing Aaron in not just a McCarthyite way, but a slanderous, false way. The same way so many people have been slandered for the last 4 or 5 years since Russiagate became this mainstream phenomenon, and anyone who went against the official narrative or anyone affiliated with Trump was colluding with Russia, and this all became acceptable. She got caught. Aaron wasn't supposed to see that. And basically, I saw some tweet by someone who was actually, trying to hype it up, like, based Anna Kasparian. And Aaron saw it, so he called them out. He responded, as it was his right to do. And now it's ballooned into this. For her, it just seems like a desperate attempt to defend her reputation. And what she's doing, in effect, in an objective sense, is she is manufacturing consent for a dirty war that she doesn't understand. She clearly doesn't even know the basic facts of it. And replicating and extending the whole paranoid, sick McCarthyite narrative of Russiagate to attack independent media and accuse us all of being Russian agents. And so it's just like getting at such a gutter base level with people who are operating on such a primitive mindset, when what we should be talking about are the issues that Aaron and I went to Syria to help expose for Americans, because we're this is where the sausage is made. This is where the decision is made to starve the entire Syrian population through the Caesar sanctions, so that now the World Food Program finds that 56% of Syrians are food insecure. They don't have enough food for the day. We want to talk about oil tankers from Iran going to provide Syria with basic fuel because no one else is allowed to under these sanctions, and they're getting torpedoed by the Israelis. We want to talk about the U.S. troops that are occupying 1/3 of Syria, its northeast region, a totally devastated region where half the city of Raqqa was destroyed by U.S. bombs to extricate the Islamic State group, which took over that city thanks to the U.S. campaign in Iraq. We want to talk about the U.S. troops that have taken over the wheat fields and the oil wells that are literally guarding oil wells around Deir ez-Zor in northeastern Syria to starve Syrians to death and deprive them of having an economy. It's affecting all the Syrian people. And all Anna Kasparian wants to do, and these kind of, neocon style characters who are feeding her these bogus stories through her DMs, all they want to do is manufacture consent for that status quo policy that aims to prevent Syrians from rebuilding their homes, that's covering up one of the greatest pro-war deceptions since the Iraq War WMD scandal, which Aaron and us at the Gray Zone have done so much work to expose, the Duma deception. So that's what we want to talk about, and we're just getting dragged down. Everything's been being filtered through the sewer pipe of the personal beef of the Young Turks, and they have nowhere else to take the conversation except in a neocon direction. It's just pure trash.
Yeah, well, you make a great point that she doesn't even know what's going on.
No, she said that Aaron Mate lied about ISIS bombing the Yarmouk refugee camp, and that if, in fact, the Assad regime bombed it. She doesn't know that ISIS, along with Jabhat al-Nusra, the Syrian al-Qaeda franchise, had taken over large parts of this Palestinian refugee camp south of Damascus, and that they were going to use it, along with the CIA-backed Free Syrian Army, as an entryway to seizing the southern part of Damascus. And they were holding the capital city of Syria under siege and holding a Palestinian population under siege. And in order to get them out, working with Palestinian factions in the camp, like the PFLP-GC, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine General Command, the Syrian military bombarded it with Vietnam-era weapons, causing massive amounts of destruction. Is awful what happened there. But she doesn't even understand that. She thinks that Aaron lied. Aaron went there and provided the proper context about what happened, just trying to educate people about a dirty war that we've been sponsoring, about a decade-long catastrophe that Syrians have experienced. And it was a noble act that he's just being smeared for, but it's very clear she doesn't know the first thing about it and is just operating at the crude level that TYT constantly functions at. And what is this about, Aaron attacking excellent journalists? What journalist is he attacking here? She's not a journalist. Anna Kasparian is to journalism what Logan Paul is to boxing. I mean, this is just a joke.
She was. I think she was referring to when Aaron was outing Ryan Grimm's phony fundraising for the billionaire-funded Intercept. So that's what she was saying. He was attacking Ryan Grimm for that. No, Ryan Grimm and Aaron were having a very good back and forth on Twitter, which was respectful, and Aaron was owning his ass. That's what was happening. He wasn't. Nobody was being attacked. Aaron was pointing out how that's a deceptive fundraising technique to use at the Intercept, like it is, and they don't need that money. They're funded by a billionaire, and that's all. So anyway, so that's I think what she was because you attacked a journalist. Cenk Uygur did a tweet saying I attack journalists too, and he put Ryan Grimm's name in the tweet and Democracy Now! Amy Goodman, and because we rightly here with Aaron called her out and their show for not covering Russiagate correctly and not covering Syria correctly. They won't cover the OPCW whistleblowers correctly. They won't bring Aaron on, the guy who's the premier journalist covering this story. They won't do it. So there you go. They don't even have Glenn Greenwald on anymore. They stopped. I mean, democracy. Anyway, so that's the whole point. And so Cenk Uygur and TYT are now just melting down, and they're trying to McCarthy smear the gray zone and Aaron. And go ahead. You want to say something?
Well, yeah, it's a complete meltdown. There's no substance to anything they say. They're lying relentlessly about us. I mean, today she suggested that I was recruited by the Russian government. I mean, it's almost like just too ridiculous to respond to. It's definitely a lie. But I knew Cenk years ago, before Anna Kasparian was in the picture. He had some other female co-host who I don't remember. Ben Mankiewicz was co-host. It was like a show that was barely known in LA when I first met him. And you were right. He was trying to do kind of like a liberal, pro-Democratic Party version of Howard Stern, right when like Air America was just jumping off, and
right.
like Rachel Maddow was on Air America, and Sam Cedar, that whole scene. He was trying to get into that scene. And he had like this bawdy kind of frat boy sense of humor. I kind of understood where he was coming from. And then, the show kind of took off. It was a vehicle for the Democrats. That's pretty much all it was. The Democrats felt like they were under siege because of right-wing radio at the time, and Rush Limbaugh was still the #1 nationally syndicated show. There was the Bush era. You felt like everyone was against the Iraq War in Air America because it was Bush's Republican war, not because it was an imperialist war. And he brought in Anna, this Armenian woman, to a show named after the authors of the Armenian genocide, which I found kind of unusual. And then they started taking up the mantle of Bernie, pretending to be anti-establishment. And then the whole, now that the whole Bernie thing's fizzled out, they are manufacturing consent for imperialism. They're operation in support of the Democratic Party, which is just the status quo. It's just a dominant faction of the establishment, completely pro-war, pro-Wall Street party. You look at what happened to Ilhan Omar today. That's the Democratic Party. A bunch of pro-Israel, Islamophobic racists silenced her, and she completely backpedaled on what she had said, which was a factual which was an already kind of a flawed anti-imperialist critique. But then she whimpered away and said, "Well, I would never compare the Taliban and Hamas to the U.S. and Israel, which are democratic countries with functional legal systems."
No.
So that's the Democratic Party, and that's what they're a part of. They're basically a really fading arm of an exposed establishment in a failing empire. And if you judge from the ratio that Anna experienced today, they're just they don't have their finger on the pulse of where the people are in this country or anywhere else in the world. And on a day when Peru has elected a leftist president in a country that has just experienced tidal waves of the same kind of anti-communist hysteria that we experienced during the Cold War and also during Russiagate, this is what they choose to talk about: smearing independent journalists. So TYT is really a thing of the past. It's basically these two talking to themselves in some air-conditioned, glorified garage connected to the financial feeding tube of some Wall Street billionaire, attacking everyone who's trying to do something real.
Yeah, well, it's just amazing. So they don't bring on Vanessa Beasley. They don't bring on Eva Bartlett. They don't.
Well, why not ask Aaron to come on and debate?
Why not?
Aaron brings people on to debate. He always tries to bring on his adversaries to debate him. Usually they won't, but during Russiagate, I mean, he even brought Ned Price on. Ned Price is the State Department spokesman now, and he was just one of these, Russiagate tools during the Trump era who was auditioning for his job at the State Department. And Aaron actually got him to come on to have a civil debate. But they won't do that because they'll get destroyed.
That's right.
I mean, it would be like if Mayweather actually was Mayweather against Logan Paul.
Yeah.
It would just be a total humiliation. So they're not interested in facts. And honestly, I think this is the most attention they've gotten in a while. I saw Cenk the other day, and let me say, personally, I've always gotten along with him. He had me on to talk about the management of savagery, my book, which talks about the Syrian dirty war and the whole context of the U.S. contributing billions of dollars through the CIA to this arm and equip program to fuel this extremist insurgency that ravaged Syria. And he was pretty receptive. It's not clear that he really stands on any clear principle or ideas around Syria or foreign intervention. It's just wherever he lines up on any particular day. He was pretty receptive. The other day, I think it was 2 days ago, he said, we have logged 14 million hours of viewers in the last year or month. Not minutes, hours. And I'm thinking like some TVs got left on in a hotel room somewhere or something. Because if you look at their live streams,
no one's watching.
Maybe 3,000 people are watching their live streams, but they have millions of subscribers.
5 million.
Everybody's tuned out.
They have 5 million people have clicked the subscribe, and none of them show up for their live stream anymore because well, I think it started with Loser Donald, and then they went into the Russiagate, and they shifted, getting their audience just became regular MSNBC viewing shit libs. And now they did Force to Vote. Their own paying members turned on them over that. 85%, 9 out of 10 of their own paying members wanted them to do Force to Vote. Cenk Uygur wouldn't do it, and everybody saw it. And I think people are now abandoning them. And then I exposed them how they treated Julian Assange and how they're treating Aaron Mate. And people are just leaving them, and this is them being desperate. They're doing things trying to say that we sexual harass them now, that he's being paid by Russia, that we're getting paid by Assad, just making up any crazy thing they can. They're tweeting out doctored videos, deceptively edited videos to make it look like he said something he didn't. I mean, they're doing all the things they used to claim that their enemies did. They became the worst versions of themselves possible.
Yeah. But they've just gone full circle. From just a part of the Democratic Party's echo chamber to the Democratic Party's echo chamber after this sort of interregnum in which they played, socialists. They pretended to be socialists because Bernie was willing to give them a platform. So many of these people that got around the Bernie campaign and fed off the energy around it and got a lot of shine, got in the limelight with him, like where are they now? What are they actually doing that's challenging the establishment?
Nothing.
It's pathetic.
They're not doing anything. They're actually running interference for the establishment. That's what they're doing now at the Young Turks. And
it is telling that she's, tweeting Bellingcat articles out that are just such desperate attempts to paint us all as like people who are paid by a government that is under sanctions that would have no way of doing it. Like I don't even know how I'd go about getting Syrian government money. But it's just like a smear tactic that's typical of Bellingcat. And the reality is, you mentioned Bellingcat, one of their top funders is the National Endowment for Democracy, which is like the regime change arm of the U.S. government. They sponsor these regime change operations around the world, Nicaragua, Venezuela. The Syrian White Helmets were a group that was the USAID was funding to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. And Bellingcat's most recent financial filings also show that they were, I don't know how they were receiving the money, if they were giving training sessions for this firm or not, but they were receiving payments from Adam Smith International, which is basically a private firm that works with British MI6, British intelligence in the Middle East, and was actually helping provide briefcases full of cash into the Idlib province, which is under the control of Syrian al-Qaeda, to create a police force, which eventually became part of the Syrian al-Qaeda militancy in Idlib. This was exposed in the BBC of all places by Adam Smith International whistleblowers. So a group that was actually profiting from the Syrian dirty war, that was helping to fuel al-Qaeda, the organization responsible for the 9/11 attacks and their rise in Syria, is also paying Bellingcat. So is Chemonics, another outsourced firm that works with U.S. intelligence. And Chemonics was used to supply the Syrian White Helmets, which were basically the media ancillary of Syria's al-Qaeda franchise and all of these other branches. So they're the ones, it really is a projection. And it's a projection of the way they see journalism and they see media, where they behave as complete mercenaries and they can't imagine that somebody else might be acting on principle. So they assume that they must be mercenaries as well, just for the other side. And so that's why I think, another reason why I think they just so reflexively say, oh, you're paid by Russia, Syria, and Venezuela because you've stood up against U.S. regime change operations. That's their mentality.
So that they like to point, Cenk and Anna like to point to when the Iraq War in 2006, Cenk was against it. And how people...
because it was Bush's Republican war.
That's right. And people were...
If it was Howard Dean's war, he would have been cheerleading it.
And how people were... He claims that people were disparaging them because they were calling out the bullshit of the Iraq war. And now he's doing exactly what he claimed people were doing to him. He's smearing a journalist for calling out the bullshit of the Syrian war. That's all they're doing. Saying they're McCarthy smearing him, saying he's paid by Russia, saying he's working for Assad, saying he doesn't care about, he's denying chemical attacks against children. He's debunking them. He's debunking a pro-war narrative. And so it's just, when you say it comes full circle, it's just amazing. They became the thing they used to fight against. They became it. It's, Cenk Uygur used to do pro-war rallies when he was in college. I mean, that's in him. That's the way the gears work in his brain. He's an imperialist, that's the way he did pro-war rallies when he was for Iraq war when he was in college. That's a fact. Go ahead. You want to say something, Max?
So did Dave Weigel.
So yeah, right. So did Dave Weigel, who's Jeff Bezos hires Dave Weigel to cover progressive politics at the Washington Post. The guy who did pro-Iraq war rallies when he was in college. Of course. All right, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him either, but when I first met him, he was really into Ron Paul. He was a huge soldier for Ron Paul, and he was much more interesting then. But
now he's a regular shit
cognitive capture.
Yeah, well, Trump happened and he became a regular shitlib.
Yeah, and I remember Cenk when Trump happened, Cenk said, the CIA is good now. They're our friends.
Yes.
We need to drop our opposition to the CIA.
No, he said that.
I remember distinctly him saying that.
Oh, I bet. I wouldn't put it past, of course. He said dumber things and worse. And he said we just have to look at them as sort of emblematic of this wider failed media ecosystem. And when you see the rejection of their McCarthyite lies on Twitter, one of the most frequent comments I see is, I can't believe that I used to subscribe to these morons and I used to watch TYT. That's what I see again and again and again. So people are waking up, and that's positive. Yeah, that is positive. And I'm trying to remind people, this isn't infighting. Infighting is when you agree on a goal and you just are going to fight over tactics. That's not what this is. They don't agree on the goals, right? They're for pushing. They want more bombing in Syria. They called them Nerf bombs, right? They don't want to vote on Medicare for all. They don't want the squad to use their leverage. So, and in fact, they'll shit on anybody who asks them to do that, like me, and anybody who was forced to vote. People see through them now. I think that's great. So it's good that we expose them. It's not infighting. You have to expose these pretenders who are funded by DNC donors and who are there to sheepdog you back into a pro-war, pro-military industrial complex, pro-Wall Street party, anti-worker. And we know that Cenk Uygur's anti-worker. He's a union buster. He told me after the 2016 election, I said, Cenk, let's go organize, let's unionize all the Walmart workers in California. Let's do it. And he said, I'm not into unions. So, this is who they are. And they can't run from it anymore. So now now Cenk is out there tweeting about the loony left. He sounds like Bill O'Reilly. He's like, oh, the loony left. He's like, when are they gonna criticize Trump? It's fucking June 2021 and he still wants us to criticize Trump. Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.